Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Aries, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of January 2024. Happy New Year, and I hope you are well. I'm using the Tarot of the Abyss for you today. Before the reading begins, if it resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That's link number 1 in the description box. Link number 2 is to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix. That's over on the Circle platform. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost and hang out with an extraordinary group of people. So if that's your bag, you know what to do with that. The third link in the description box is to 3-month overviews that I've done for each of the signs. They run from January to March 2024. There's a reason why I've done 3 months instead of 6 months, and if you've looked at the astrology of April, you'll probably twig why. I don't think there's any spoilers when I say it's going to be interesting. So I thought it important to focus on the run-up to that energy to see where we were being positioned so that we can make sense of what happens in April. If that's something that's of interest to you, please do avail yourself of that link. Now, Aries, let's have a look and see what's going on with you. Could I have, please, 3 cards for Aries? There we go. We have the Devil reversed in your recent past. That's welcome. I like that. Tell me about current energy for Aries, please. Ooh. We have the Queen of Pentacles. Double Capricorn here. That's interesting. And what's coming towards Aries for January, please? Ooh, we have the Chariot. Wonderful. That's a card of Cancer. Major Arcana, as it is. So, at the bottom of the deck, we have the Two of Pentacles. And this is an interesting card. I mean, the meaning of this shifts around really quite dramatically. It's often, for me, a card of coping. And I know that this is something that's come up for Aries quite a lot. You know, in fact, was your December reading not something about the mask of coping or the curse of coping, something like that? Anyway, this is kind of an energy that we're looking to leave behind, but I think in order to leave it behind properly, you need to understand where it comes from, where it's originated. Now, let's get some clarifiers out before I say any more. But I am liking this combination of cards for you, Aries, for sure. So tell me about the Devil reversed, please. What's that here for Aries? 2 cards. We have got the 5 of Swords and the Magician. Wonderful. Tell me about the Queen of Pentacles, please. Tell me about this Queen of Pentacles. Come on. All right, we'll take those. We've got the Emperor and we've got the 6 of Wands. Tell me about the Chariot. Why is this here? Oh, got the Knight of Pentacles in reverse, which is interesting, and the 2 of Swords in reverse with, believe it or not, the 2 of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck again. Right. This feels to me highly strategic. In fact, these 2 cards are Capricorn as well. Now, if we take the energy of Capricorn and what it represents, it is systems, it's hierarchies, it's efficiencies, it's planning for the future. And I think that January, you're making use of this time, actually December, and we've got where you are right now and what you're going into, to make sense of where it is that you want to go in the future. I mean, a lot of the second half of last year was about recovering from the as I've termed it, the protracted tower moment that you seem to have experienced over the course of the preceding 18 months, actually. And it's been a slow process of recovery. But where you are right now seems to be, to me, the most recovered that you have ever been, as we would expect. And very definitely future facing. Now, if we start here, when we've got the Devil in reverse, you know, the Devil represents all sorts of toxic things. It can be a feeling of being trapped, being stuck. I mean, sometimes the Devil can represent, you know, escapist behaviours like, oh my God, that was my belly gurgling. What the fuck? Well, it seems to me that you have released a lot. If any of you have been having issues with substance abuse, which is actually what I was trying to talk about in terms of escapist behaviours, you know, alcohol, drugs, whatever, that seems to have fallen by the wayside in the best way possible, which is great. But, you know, escapist behaviours can manifest themselves in all sorts of ways, including any kind of self-destructive behaviour, really. And self-sabotage is what the Five of Swords really does speak to. This has been left behind, this part of you. You know, the Five of Swords represents self-sabotage, but if you break the card down into its component meanings, because there's symbolism all over it, and you could probably spend an entire day just pulling this card apart here. But you have the number 5, which in minor arcana represents an instability, right? Something that isn't stable, it's moving around, it's changing, it's evolving. And we hope it's changing, and we hope it's evolving. And it's under the element of air, right? It's an Aquarius card right here. And it refers to communication, it refers to the way that your mind works, because it's things of intellect and rationalities, right? The swords are the element of the mind, right? The swords are air, air is the element of mind. So what we've got here is kind of cognitive loops, wonky thinking, self-sabotaging thinking, all those sorts of things. They all fall under the umbrella of this card here. And for it to come out underneath the Devil reversed would suggest to me that you have identified a number of ways in which you have held yourself back, sabotaged yourself, maybe even sabotaged relationships, sabotaged situations, and not realised that you've done it, which is how these things work. We never actively go out to sabotage ourselves. It's something that seems to happen quite holistically all by itself. It's not entirely true. You know, the subconscious is pulling overtime usually on that sort of situation. And we've replaced it instead with the energy of the Magician, which is an energy of having a toolbox which is absolutely replete with skills and understanding and insight, and more importantly, power. You know, the Magician combines his will, something for which you are famed, with the elements on his table to manifest for himself the kind of life that he wants to experience. Now, again, I want to draw your attention to the fact that we have a considerable amount of Capricorn energy on the table here. Now, that may or may not be, for example, a sign that shows up in one of your big 3. But even if it's not, it suggests that your mind is now turning to the future and what it is that you can build for yourself moving forwards. You know, the era of breaking down is gone. The era of recovery has been successfully passed through. And now there's somewhat of a tabula rasa for long-term planning. The Two of Pentacles suggests that there are a certain number of moving parts in your life at the moment that require settling down in some sort of way. I mean, that's how the energy of the Two of Pentacles is reading here for me. As you adjust yourself to the new person that you are now, which is very, very different to who you were 6 months ago, and definitely like leagues apart from who you were this time last year or the year before that. I like it because it's really positive and it's really focused, but it's not toxically positive. You know, you've been through a lot, you've endured a lot, you have learned a lot. And this Magician seems to be coming in here as a nod to the fact that you have understood the lessons and that you are ready for the act of rebuilding. Now, when we move into your current energy, there's that Capricorn again with the Queen of Pentacles. But we've left behind the more, you know, toxic aspects of what Capricorn can sometimes represent, you know, restriction and whatnot. It's a Saturnian card. And where Saturn's concerned, things can be very frustrating, things can be delayed, things don't work out quite the way that we would like them to, and that's an understatement. But what people often forget about Saturn is that it does do this for a reason. There is a purpose to it. It is not about wholesale punishment. It is about making you learn something so fucking deeply that you change as a result, and what you can do, what you can create, what you can achieve, how you can feel is improved as a result. Now, the Queen of Pentacles here in your current energy, I think, is a very solid statement of understanding now that you have needs and you must meet them. And it is not really acceptable for you anymore to constantly and consistently put to the side the things that you need in favour of duties, responsibilities, obligations that you have to anyone, that are unreasonable for you to undertake if you are in a state of depletion, which you have been, certainly over the course of 2023. It's been slowly building back up again. You need to take care of yourself. That's the long and short of it, Aries. And I really do think that you're seeing the value of that now. We've got the Emperor underneath that, which is a card of Aries, and I really love this positive stamp of your energy being right here. A bit like, hello, I'm back now. I can start doing things again with the same level of drive, of motivation, of courage and bravery. You know, that kind of relentless side of Aries that has given you the fuel to keep going, even though things have been really hard, right? It's been a feat of endurance up until this point, but now it's about getting all of your shit together. It's about starting to plan, starting to think strategically about how you can, like I said, kind of adjust to being the new you as you are now. And maybe recognize how this has changed what it is that you want to achieve moving forwards, like the kind of life that you want to live for yourself. The Six of Wands is a beautiful card. It's Jupiter in Leo. But the Six of Swords, beg your pardon, the Six of Wands is a card that doesn't really get read in isolation. It doesn't really have any meaning unless there's been, and it's implied by the presence of the Six of Wands, a preceding Five of Wands, which is struggle, which is conflict, which is battle of sorts, right? And that doesn't have to be with people outside of you or situations outside of you. In fact, I would say it's far more likely that you've been battling against parts of your psyche, parts of your subconscious. The Six of Wands represents a victory. It represents having arrived at a state where lessons have been learned, enemies have been vanquished, and those are internal enemies, internal narratives, internal even perspectives on how the world works and what is expected of you as an Aries in the world at any given point. As much about what you expect of yourself as other people. You know, the rules of the game have changed entirely, Aries. And because you are now much more important to you properly in a way that you've never been before. Again, it's this sense of a tabula rasa. An awareness that you're powerful, an awareness that you have skills and, you know, the ability to endure. Like, holy shit, I think that's something that that fire signs do really well. It's, you know, we've forged literally in flame. There is built into a fire sign the idea of endurance. But sometimes that gives us the idea that everything must be hard all of the time. And that isn't true. You know, sometimes when things come along and they're a little bit too easy, we're like, oh, I don't really trust that. And that's where the sabotage comes in. The slate has been wiped clean, though. And starting from this very healthy perspective that you now have, where you put yourself first, you take care of yourself, you invest in yourself, you pay attention to your energy levels, you don't try and drive yourself beyond what is reasonable for one person to achieve, because you have very high expectations of yourself. Like, where you are at the moment does feel a little bit like just stepping back, appreciating how far you've come, what you've been through, how pretty much most of that shit is clear now. Like, you've cleared all of that away, and you've got an empty space within which you can build, you can construct something new. Capricorn is associated with delayed gratification, which is not something that you would generally associate with an Aries, but I think that there's something much more reflective about your energy now than there has been before, and a willingness to engage with a longer term healthy structure than what has sort of sprung up almost holistically through you kind of careering from one situation to another. And the question remains then, like, what is it that you want to build? moving forwards. It could be that, you know, you're thinking about things from a very practical perspective in terms of jobs and money and where you live and all that kind of thing. We could see those themes coming up for you. But I really do feel like it's much more, how do I want to feel while I'm walking through life doing the things that I like to do? What are the things that I like to do? What do I want to invest my time in? Because the one thing about the Two of Pentacles here that we haven't really talked about is that it is the card that comes after the Aces. Now, the Aces are seeds. They're potential that is planted in the ground, and at some point, very slowly, they will build into something new. But they must be plucked. The potential must be taken from where it sits, and it must be channeled into something somewhere, right? So you can have a reading that is completely full of aces, but if you choose to change nothing, if you choose to invest in nothing, that potential just sits there and it's completely untapped. The fact that we've got double Two of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck here says to me that you recognize, it's very important, you recognize that the potential is there. And we have a member of the court hierarchy who is helping you funnel that into something. I mean, this is a doing. And the investment actually at this point is kind of internal. I would be surprised if there's any external manifestation of this just yet. You know, the queens are receptive. They speak about internal stuff, and they quite often can also represent how we make sense of what it is that we choose to invest in, how we make sense of what is valuable to us. It's quite interesting. I did the 3-month overview for, I think it was Leo last night. And it was interesting how much of that reading tapped into the Venus retrograde of last summer. Now, obviously, it was retrograding in Leo, so that there would be a specific reference point for Leo there. But as your sister fire sign, I feel like it had quite a profound effect on all of the fires. It had a profound effect on everyone, but particular significance for the fire signs. You know, as we kind of raked through what had been important to us in the past and considered, reflected upon, reassessed whether those things still held the value that we had attributed to them, or whether we were being pulled in a different direction. And I think everybody came to the conclusion that their priorities needed to shift. They needed to change into something else. And I'm getting that kind of vibe. I'm certainly getting the feeling of the Venus retrograde starting to appear in terms of how you are fashioning your life moving forwards, what it is that has value, what it is that you want to invest in, and then bringing that Aries energy up from the rear to say, how can I support this? How can I plan this? How can I structure this? How can I create some order to this potentially slightly chaotic environment that I've been in for a little while, so that the rest of my days, however long they are, follow this pattern rather than the one that it has just taken me the best part of 2 years to sever and reflect upon, you know? Quite simply, how can I go through the rest of my life feeling like a winner? And that's nothing to do with, you know, whether you've got an awesome house, an awesome job and all that kind of thing. I mean, they can certainly help. But it's noticing how much of this is generated from within. You know, there have been times in my life where there's one friend I'm thinking of in particular, is a Scorpio, actually. It had a succession of really awful things happen, right, that took him off his path. He had a plan, this is where he was going, this is what he was doing, and then things happening. He had health conditions, had to drop out of the degree course that he was in, and put down something that he had completely dedicated his life to up until that point. And he just pivoted and he went off to do something else. And I'm like, I remember hearing about it before I spoke to him, and I was like, oh my God, he must be devastated, can't believe it. And then I caught up with him a month or so later, and he was like, no, I've done this, I've enrolled in this other thing over here. And I'm like, wow. And it was probably one of the first times where I had a recognition of how much I would have felt defeated by that situation, and I probably would have flailed around in my own misery for a little bit. And he didn't do that, and was incredibly inspirational. Quite simply, life is what you make it. And things can be really, really hard, and you can go through it with a smile on your face because you're grateful for the things that are really, really good. It's almost like the things that are bad show the good things up in really sharp relief. And it could be with that realignment of values, realignment of what was the word that I was looking for? It disappeared there. Priorities. That you're giving yourself over to much more of a state of gratitude rather than getting kind of lost in the struggle of what the last couple of years have been. And it's a huge mindset change here, and I do think it's coming from the subconscious, right? There's as much an alignment between the subconscious and conscious parts of your mind as there is everything else. It feels very balanced and it feels very mature. And like I said, how do I need to feel to know that I'm going through life as a winner, regardless of whatever circumstances and situations I happen upon during that time? When we move into January, we have the Chariot. Now, this is a pretty nice go sign for anything that you might be working on or have been considering in this previous time frame here. It's a card of determination, of planning, of victory, of success. It's about setting yourself a goal and then making sure that everything is in balance so that you can move in a straight line towards that goal. In fact, we've got like giant geese here. There's a sense of not just traveling along the ground, but kind of lifting up and being able to elevate yourself so that you can go along, through the sky rather than over, kind of getting lost in the struggle down here on the ground, if you were. But the other thing that is really significant about the Chariot is it is a card of the self. It's about being aware of all the bits of you, owning all the bits of you. Interestingly for me, it's a card of shadow work, and I don't see that's a particular signification that it has for me. And that's because it does speak to polarities. It does speak to being able to hold the two extremes of self in a harmonious balance, accepting all of it, disavowing none of it, so that you can move forwards, right? It's a kind of control over the wilder sides of you that exist at either end of the spectrum, and pulling them together and going, we're moving this way. I mean, exactly as I was just saying, actually, conscious and subconscious mind pulling in alignment instead of pulling in separate directions. And the Charioteer then being the point of integration between the two. It is the conscious mind going, all right, these are the good bits of me. These are the bits that in the past I have considered to be the bad parts of me, but I can see where there are useful things in there, and I'm going to own it all, because integration and wholeness is actually the most important thing. I mean, we're talking about really showing up authentically here, Aries. And being almost like unapologetically you, but not as a shield, not as a defense mechanism, which I think is often how it's shown up in the past. Now, like I said, this is a big go sign. What are you working on? What are you trying to bring towards you? Here it is. Now, the Knight of Pentacles under here is quite an interesting addition, because we might expect it to show up like this. It indicates movement. Whenever the Knights show up in reverse, generally we have some sort of halt. We have something kind of drawing to, putting the brakes on, slamming the anchors, as my partner might say, so that there isn't movement in one particular area where we thought there might be. And I'm just going to pull an extra card for that, because I'm intrigued to know whether it is one aspect of something that you've been working on that just needs to hold up for a second, take a pause, reflect on it, something like that. I mean, I'm inclined to think that that might be the case, because we do have the Two of Swords. Now, the Two of Swords is stuff that you don't know, right? It's the things that you don't know that you can't see, frankly. When it shows up in the reverse, like it is here, it is about being aware of those things that you did not know, right? It's the information coming to you. It's about you being able to see something that you couldn't see before. Tell me about this Knight of Pentacles, please. Why is that here? Oh, goodness. Right, we have two cards. Ace of Cups and Three of Cups. Intriguing. Right. The Knight of Pentacles indicates value, right? He's shown as holding up the pentacle in front of himself and saying, this is what is valuable to me, this is what I'm doing, I'm setting this in front of myself. He also speaks about discipline and control and commitment to stuff. And I think what this is saying here is that you've got a big green stamp on everything that it is that you want to do, but there is something that remains that kind of needs to fall by the wayside. And as things stand at the moment, you haven't realised what it is yet. I mean, it's certainly coming in January. The awareness of it is coming in January. There's something that you're committed to, that you're trying to take alongside with you, and I think it needs to go. Because we have the Six of Swords at the bottom of this deck now, which does talk about leaving something behind. But we've got the Ace of Cups and the Three of Cups, and I do wonder if there's something about a dynamic. And the dynamic is you within a group of people, because the Three of Cups is relationships that are more than just the one-on-one, or, you know, that we would see in the Two of Cups. Like, there's an extended network here. And it could be your social group, it could be your family, it could be work colleagues or whatever. But I think it's really interesting that we've got the Ace of Cups first, which is your relationship with yourself. And then we have this Three of Cups, and it's almost like there's a dynamic that needs to be renegotiated, if it is at all possible. And for some of you, it might not be. What am I getting at here? What I'm saying is that as you are healing, as you have been doing for the last 6 months, I think what it's doing is showing you where there are certain people that you have been spending time with, or some, you know, people who've been part of your life up until this point, that you are suddenly aware in the month of January that you don't have very much in common with anymore. In fact, the only thing that you seem to have in common is a shared history. But the way that you feel about yourself has changed so significantly that you do not fit into the previous dynamic that you used to. I mean, it could be that this Three of Cups is in some way representative of a trauma bond that you've suddenly discovered that you've had with other people within a group dynamic. And you're like, but I'm not traumatized anymore. And these people, you know, when the issue with trauma bonds is that they're forged when people are at their lowest point, right? And what they have in common is the trauma. As one person begins to heal, they leave behind what it is that caused the commonality, right? What it is that caused the point of connection. And the people who are not ready to evolve and grow and all that kind of thing go, where the fuck are you going? What the fuck do you think is going on right here? So like, stop that, stop it. Because it's holding a mirror up to them and showing them where their work needs to be. And most times, people don't respond to that very well. So what I'm saying is, it feels like there are a few connections that you've grown out of, but for some reason, you're trying to kind of drag those along with you. I would be very careful about that, Aries, because in all likelihood, what's happening here is you're fired up about the changes that you've made within yourself. And now you're taking on responsibility for taking other people with you, right? Being all like, I can do this, you can do this, let's do this together, this is all great. You know, really fired up with enthusiasm. And not maybe seeing that it's time for you to part ways with people, because that's what the Six of Swords is saying to me here. There's a parting of ways going on. You are moving away from something. You cannot take it with you. And I think the fact that the Two of Swords is here is showing you what you did not see before, because you simply did not have eyes to see it before. The healing has occurred to such an extent now, though, that there's no point of connection with these other people. And there's a whole heap of things that can come up with that. I mean, a lot of times people feel very guilty about moving away from people who were there with them when they were at their lowest. But this is just the way that it goes sometimes, right? People part ways, and that's okay. Nowhere is it written that you have to be besties till the end of time. And I think if people were a little bit more relaxed about that, then friendships would end when they're supposed to end, or, you know, relationships of any sort, whatever this is representing here for you. You could bid them farewell and wish them well, and then get on with the business. But I feel like there's something kind of a little bit difficult for you to bend your emotions around here this time. But at the same time, your relationship with self is so well positioned now. You can't really go back to an old pattern of behavior, because that's what this dynamic requires of you. And it could, like I said, it could be family members, it could be friends, it could be work colleagues, it could be all sorts of things. But it's like this is something that kind of needs to be put down here now, so that you can focus all of your attention on, you know, living the life that you know that you're ready to start living now, and honouring the relationship that you have with yourself, rather than compromising it as you would need to if you carried this forward with you. So, kind of bittersweet, but definitely more sweet than bitter, Aries, for sure. So I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to go over and do the extended now. You're welcome to join me on Vimeo or on Circle, either or. But if this is where we part ways, you know, this is really good work, Aries, but, you know, there's just one last little bit that you need to accept. It's time for it to go, time for you to walk away from it. Oh, fuck me, I didn't even notice that. You've got the World card underneath the Six of Swords. It's time to walk away from this situation and allow everything to complete the way that it's supposed to. So, all right, I'll leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.